First up, we're going to have the white king will be on g5, and the white bishop will be on f8. We're going to have a black pawn on a2, and the black king will be on c2. Inexperienced players will occasionally think that a lone minor piece like a bishop or a knight might be able to put up some sort of fight against the queen. But let me just tell you that that's not the case. We're going to explore both the possibilities with the bishop versus queen and a knight versus queen, and we will demonstrate beyond any doubt that the minor piece has no chance against a queen. In this position, it'll be black to move. We're going to do it from black's perspective. And first thing we're going to do is go ahead and queen. Pawn to a1 equals queen. It's very important that black promotes their pawn immediately, or else white is going to be able to prevent it with the bishop to g7. Then black should treat a queen versus bishop situation in the same way as a king and queen versus a lone king. The only difference is you must be careful about stepping onto the colored squares controlled by the bishop. White obviously has a dark squared bishop, and so what I want to do is I want to set a box, because that's what we're supposed to do. The smallest box that I can think of for black, if it was my move, would be to come here to d4, queen d4. That sets up this box that goes from h4 to d4 to d8 to h8 for the king to operate in. But it is white's move. So the text move is bishop to d6, and then I need to bring my, will get me forks in. Not yet. Honestly, this wouldn't be too bad. The queen to d4, setting the box, and then getting it off of the dark squares once I have a second. But we need to bring the king in, so we'll go king to d3. Some useful advice in a queen versus dark squared bishop endgame: stay on light squares as often as possible, and the bishop becomes a non-factor. In this position, king to f5 is the text move, and now we're going to set the box. So queen to f1 check. Obviously it puts the queen on a light square, and so there's really nothing that this dark squared bishop's going to be able to do besides maybe get in the way. But I will patiently kick the enemy king around a bit, and after some prodding, make it give ground to my king. King to e5, because it doesn't want to move to these sides of the board, which is where we want in the queen versus king endgame. And so we're going to stay on the light squares. Remember, dark squared bishop, stay on the light squares. If it's on a light square, you stay on the dark squares. And so queen e2, continuing to see if the king is going to give me some ground. King to f5. From here, I mean, I kind of like this. This isn't horrible. He'd be forced to go here. Staying on the light square theme, this queen to h5 is not bad, because then he would have to go here. He wouldn't be able to, well, I guess he could go here. But that's falls to this, which skewers him. Okay, I see where they're going with that. Queen to h5 check, pushing the enemy king back, since if he goes king to f4, then queen to h2 wins the bishops. We're looking at the skewer possibility. Queen h5 check, he goes king to f6. We do have this one, but obviously the king can move either to e7 or e5, which then defends this bishop. We're going to go a different route and bring the king in. King to e4. Notice how my king is staying on the light squares as also as my queen is, because they have a dark square bishop. So black's king will always step closer to white's whenever it's possible to do so. Bishop to f8. White doesn't want to move the bishop too far away from the king, because then it could easily lead to being forked. For example, if we go bishop to g3, which is up here, bishop to g3, that is easily lost, because queen to f3 check, queen to f3 check wins the bishop. Bishop to f8, and then from here, I don't mind this one. Queen to f5 check, because then the king would be forced to either go here to g7 or even e7. Let's see if he does that. I bring the king forward. Is that stalemate? It's getting close. I gotta be very careful here. So if he goes here, then I need to block and then stick this guy here. then bring the king over. No, they can't go there. So that actually is a little different. So they go, just bring it back to where we were. Bishop to f8. We're going to see what they do. Queen to e5, check. So that keeps the king from coming over to the e file and then getting defended by this bishop. They don't have to, but they could either go to g6 or f7. So let's say they go to g6, queen to e8 check, king goes down to g7. Make sure that we don't just win their bishop. Now we're going to bring the king into f5, keeping the king on the light squares. We're going to tighten these box. Remember the box method that we learned from the queen and king. We're going to tighten the box them in. The bishop's going to get out of dodge. Bishop to a3. We're going to go queen to g6 check, staying on the light squares. King to h8. And because they have a bishop, if I were to move this king, the queen wouldn't have anywhere to go. But because there's a bishop, then it's not a stalemate. So typically, if the bishop wasn't over here, I would bring the queen back just one, forcing the king to kind of dance between these two squares, while I bring the king down like this, and then checkmate. But because we have this bishop here, we don't have to really worry about that, because they always have a legal move. King to h8. Now I'm going to bring the king around. King to e6. We're going to try and place this king over here on f7. We're intending king to f7, followed by queen to g8 checkmate. Bishop to e7. Here comes the rook, or the bishop again. King to f7. We're not falling for this. If we were to take this bishop, that's stalemate. The king doesn't have any legal moves, so do not fall for that. Be careful. We go bishop to f8. And they're just pleading for us to please, please, please take my bishop. But of course, we are on to that stalemate idea, and we will avoid even thinking about touching white's bishop, because we've got a checkmate. Queen to g8 mate. Black won by treating the endgame as a king and queen versus lone king endgame. The bishop was more ghost than a threat. In some cases, its presence helped black avoid stalemate. So that's the king and queen versus a bishop and king.